This is going to be an interesting one because I've never had anyone on the podcast as just like a mate. I've never spoken to anyone that wasn't someone that was here just for the podcast. So that's a good one. Adam Troughear from Skie Solutions. And we've known each other for, I think it's like 12 years now, something.
Yeah, about that.
When did you move to Melbourne?
About 12 years ago.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That was how it started. So you're currently the CEO and co-founder of Skie.
Yep.
And Skie's how old?
Just over 5 years now.
And what do you do?
We are a Salesforce partner. So basically lead businesses on their Salesforce journey, consulting, design, implementation, managed services, support of Salesforce to the mid-market across different verticals.
Yeah, and so how does that work? Is that a case of like someone's a Salesforce customer and then here I want to do a whole bunch of custom stuff and integrate it with other. Is that what it comes down to? Is that sort of where the work is?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're either, brand new to Salesforce, greenfields, come to us, come to Salesforce. Hey, we've got this business problem. We want a new sales system or support system or marketing, whatever it happens to be, and we'll consult and design and implement it.
Yeah.
Or, you're an existing customer looking at adding on a new solution, new system, and we'll come in and work on that as well.
Do all that.
Yeah.
So Salesforce resonates a lot with the guys in our industry, AV industry, because of the Salesforce head office. Is that in San Francisco with the foyer?
Salesforce Tower.
Salesforce Tower, yeah. So that thing is whenever anyone says Salesforce in our industry, everyone's like, oh, the video wall, because that's the thing that everyone wows at. Let's go back to well before any of this stuff happened. So what does your career look like? You finished high, so you're a Gold Coast OG.
Yep.
So from the Goldie. Let's go. We're graduating high school. I know you're an avid musician. I know you're probably one of the best drummers that I've ever seen. Finishing high school, musician. What happens?
Moved to the States to be a rock star.
Yeah, right.
I played in some bands straight after high school, and then got an opportunity to move to the States. Played in some bands, did sound, did hustle whatever you can to pay rent and waited tables and all that sort of stuff. And then I got a job with this 80s love song band called Air Supply.
Air Supply.
Yeah. That was...
what were you doing for them?
I started as a drum tech.
Yeah, right.
And then... So drum tech for a while, and then became their production manager, and then became their tour manager.
Yeah.
And sort of through those guys, I ended up meeting, a bunch of different musicians and just sort of kept going from there, and to the point where I was just playing drums for a few years, doing some tours and a few different things, but I was sort of always doing a bit of bits and pieces. Like one crazy thing I talked my way into was being the production manager for a group of Chinese acrobats.
Really?
Yeah. They needed someone. It was like a tour all around the States, and to do to take them around, but you needed to be able to do lights. And I was a production manager with Air Supply, so I knew the equipment.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, figure it out.
This will be fine.
Yeah, and sort of talked my way into it, and said, yeah, okay, we'll do it, but we need to have like a few days of setup at your facility. So I know I called a mate of mine who was the LD on Air Supply to come in and set everything up and give me a crash course in running like I think it was a full hog or a half hog system with a couple of moving lights and stuff like that, and off we went.
And did it work out?
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, right.
So did that for 10 years in the States, and then towards the end I was doing a bit more like lights, recording music, just stuff in technology.
Yeah.
And I was never trained in it, but just sort of gravitated towards it, and I was okay at it. And I was hitting about the 10-year mark of being in the States. I had a Australian girlfriend at the time, and we were talking about, coming back. And I really wanted to come back and record some music with, guys back here.
Private radio.
Yeah. We had a unfinished business to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the timing was good, and I was like, okay, I'll come back to Australia. I'll do this record, and I wanted to learn how to code. I was going to make apps and make millions of dollars. Actually, I wanted to make the impetus was I wanted to design, or to build, I should say, drum plugins.
Oh, okay.
For Pro Tools or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll learn how to code and get into that. So I did a software engineering advanced diploma or something. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks into the thing, I'm like, mate, I'm not a coder.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Yeah, but I was in this class, and there was kids like I'm 30, and they're 17, and they're like Neo. They just dream in code. Yeah, right? And I have to study my ass off just to get some basic VB happening.
Yeah.
But what I noticed is these guys, as brilliant as they were, they couldn't understand a business problem. They couldn't speak to anyone. They were, but brilliant. So I'm like, okay, maybe there's something that I can do here. I can understand the technology, and I can speak to people. I can have a conversation. So maybe that's my niche. I didn't know what it was going to lead to, but I'm like, okay, I can be this, conduit between business and technology. Then ended up selling Slinging Macs at Apple.
Oh, okay.
On the business team at Apple, and that's how I moved to Melbourne. Actually, I got I was on the business team that opened the Southland store. Right. And it sort of all lined up around the time that I moved down here with all the boys from private radio. Yeah. So I was at Apple for 2.5 years, maybe. Yeah, something like that.
I wanted to work for Apple. And it's funny, the story, our stories are so similar. I went to uni, did computer science, realized not for me. I'm not one, but very easy to observe that the skill set that I've got aligned with technology. I might not be great at the grunt work, but packaging it, selling it, communicating it, all that sort of stuff, very similar. When you're in a position, I just want to wind back a bit. So you're in the States. There's a dream to become a musician, a world famous rock star. Are you getting to a point in the States where reality is like, I've got to actually start thinking about if this doesn't work? It's always interesting to me because you have those people that are like, if you got a dream, you got to throw everything else out the window and just pursue the dream, and eventually it'll happen. And at some point you have to also go, okay, I gave this a good whack. Yep. What's the alternative strategy? Was that something that entered your mind at various points?
Yeah, it morphs, I would say. My, the initial dream or vision was, be a rock star, play in bands and tour the world. And then, I did to a degree, toured with bands, played in arenas, did some really cool things. So I felt like, there's things that I would like to have done, and had more success there. But then all of a sudden it becomes about fulfillment and challenge. Like I remember there was a period, it was sort of in the middle of that 10 years where I was playing drums full time. I wasn't doing any technical work, and I was bored. Yeah. To be fair, I wasn't playing arenas in a massive band, but I was
consistently working,
doing what I set out to do. And I remember one night, actually, I was playing a gig in LA, and it was in the middle of the set, and I was actually playing along and sort of thinking, I wonder which freeway is the best way to get home.
Not even in the gig anymore.
Right. Yeah. And that was actually a bit of a turning point for me, kind of going, okay, I'm sort of finally doing exactly what I set out to do, playing drums full time. And that wasn't enough.
Mm.
And I guess that's kind of when it starts to get to that thing you were just talking about as far as the reality and whatnot. And like, I'm a good drummer, but I was in the States and around some of the best in the world.
Mm.
And I'd go to some of these jam nights, and there would be guys that are literally like the guys that you see in the drum magazines.
Mm.
And they're still session guys, still living paycheck to paycheck. They're amazing craftsmen. They're amazing artists. But I don't know, to me, all of a sudden it was kind of like, okay, I'm not in control of my destiny, and that's a problem for me.
Yeah. That's a really cool way to describe it. Yeah.
So that was ultimately it, is that, and look, I think it might have been different if I was a songwriter or a guitarist, singer, or something like that. But that's not my bag.
Mm.
So for me, it was like, okay, and that's when I started to get back into doing a bit of different touring. I was playing, of circumstances as well. It was the GFC hit, so the touring industry kind of bottomed out. So I started to do some other things. But that was really the turning point. It was like, okay, I don't like not being in control of my own destiny.
Mm. Such a similar. I feel like we've got a very similar path, because it was the same for me. I went back and did music after doing computer science. Did my music degree. I'm going to make something of this.
Yep.
And the same thing. Like I had success, and then you start to think about, well, in the DJ realm, it's really easy, because you just look around the room and all of a sudden you're the oldest guy in the room and you're like, I don't want to be that DJ that's like 55 and still hanging for the once, in a blue moon gig that comes up. So similarly, I started to look for, how does my career align with, with other things? So, okay, you've made that choice. You've come back to Melbourne. No, you went back to the GFs to Gold Coast and then came to Melbourne.
Yep.
What happens when you get to Melbourne? Apple Store?
I was at the Apple Store, and I felt like I'd learnt a lot at Apple. They got great training. It was a great culture.
Mm.
Everything you hear about it. I mean, obviously, I was only on the retail side. All true, ripping place.
Yeah.
But could see a ceiling. Wasn't happy with that. Try something else. So I ended up getting a job at Swiss Wellness, or Swiss Vitamins. Then.
And I think this is when we first met, because you were at Swiss the first time.
Yeah.
I met you. Yeah, we went to the footy.
That's right.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hawks beat Gold Coast that day.
That's right. Yeah. So got a job at Swiss on the IT team, and I was on this track where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, I want to be head of IT, and kind of went through. I was there for a couple of years. It was a fantastic place, just the most incredible culture, great leaders. Really, really shaped a lot of what I try to be at Skie.
Mm.
Anyway, and it got to the point where I was for a while I was acting head of IT. I was sort of IT admin and another title, I can't remember what it was, and then IT manager for a while, then acting head of IT, and was with the CFO, Skie Mike, who I still keep in touch with, and he's been a real mentor to me. And we were about to go on do all these ERP implementations. It was part of when the business was, I think the business was acquired or going through the acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at rolling out ERP to 15 different countries and all sorts of stuff. I'm like, this is it. This is
the moment.
Yeah, this is the moment. So I put together this strategy around what I think it should be and why I should get the gig. And I remember Mike took me for a walk, and basic punchline was, "You're not ready, and it's not what you want to do."
Ah, okay. Mm.
Right. And the long and the short of it.
How did you feel when you're giving that a particular? And the one thing is, it's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
How did you react to getting that sort of information?
It was a bit of a gut punch, but I respected Mike, and so I knew there had to be some validity. Like there has to be a reason.
And that's my point. My point is having the right mentor, right?
Oh yeah.
But then being able to trust that mentor.
So what the best part was they brought this lady in, Felicity Nutter, as the head of IT, a director of technology. I can't remember what the title was. And seeing her in the role, she's a gun.
Yeah.
And she is nothing like me.
Yeah.
And so I looked at her and I was like, yeah, I actually don't want anything to do with that. That's not me at all. So he was right. But I still love technology. It was just I needed to be doing it differently or be providing different value.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking up a role of business partnering within and leading a couple of business analysts within the team.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the real turning point for me, is interacting, engaging with the business, listening to people around what their problems are, and trying to sort of, at a high level, figure out what the potential solutions could be, putting together a business case, scanning the market for solutions, and then partnering with our solutions team to actually implement and build it.
Yep.
And so that was a real point for me where I was like, okay, I can see
the skill set.
It comes back to what I was sort of talking about when I was doing the coding course, is going, I'm not the technician, I'm the conduit in between.
Yep.
So it's sort of, actually, I never really thought of that before. It kind of lines up with
100%. It's and again, it's remarkably similar to the experience that I've had, because there's things that I've wanted to do, and you head down that path and then you quickly realize, it's not as good as it seems from the outside, or the title actually comes with a whole bunch more real stuff. But it's being able to have the self-awareness to go, yeah, like I'm cool with stepping back now and going in another direction. For me, the hardest part is always going, I'm this far down the path. I've actually got to, undo that and go down another way.
And then pride and ego comes into it, because you
consistently.
Yeah, because you want the title, you want to move up, but if it's not right, it's not right.
And I think, the skill in being able to Frankenstein together all your abilities and position them into something that is, a good foundation is something that I think I'm more aware of with myself now, where like one of my directors always says to me, one of the co-owners of the business always says, you're a salesperson. And I'm like, I'm not. He's like, but you are. And I'm like, but I'm not, because I never set out to do that.
Yep.
And I don't feel like I have that skill set. I think the skill set that I have is the ability to communicate what a solution's worth is.
Yep.
And I think that's where technical people tend to shine in that next level. It's because there's knowing the technology, but then there's knowing how to make the technology relevant for the consumer or the user or whoever it is that you're dealing with. That's the skill. Was that something that once you started to get into that spot, does it just, all right, now it all makes sense. Now I'm firing on all cylinders and I'm right in that sweet spot. Did you notice that?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So that was where I was like, okay, I'm good at connecting with people, consulting, understanding what their problems are, what their challenges are, and what success ultimately should look like. What the solution should deliver. Maybe not the specifics, the mechanics of the solution, but what it should
Outcomes.
deliver. Yeah. So started to sort of practice at Swiss, and then I was made redundant, which was no,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
really,
which was the biggest blessing in disguise. Obviously, I was it came out of the blue, but at the same time, I was restless. I'd been at Swiss for 4 years or something like that. I wanted to do something new. I wanted to do something more. I don't know what. So I think it happened just before Christmas. October, November, and I was sort of getting ready to go, Christmas break, and I was sort of thinking to myself, okay, I'll come back and, approach Felicity and say I need to move laterally within the business or try something else. Anyway,
instead Felicity said, don't worry about that.
Yeah, got the tap on the shoulder. But honestly, it was the best thing that happened because it gave me a bit of space, put a little bit of money in my pocket, and it gave me the space to go out and kind of look for something new. So
because you were doing some creative sort of things there for a little while, because I remember we ran back into each other professionally through Rowan.
Yep.
And for anyone that, again, the people in our industry know very well, the company Ultralift, who eventually I did. So you introduced me and Rowan, and then Rowan I introduced to a company called Ultralift, who manufacture lifters and things in our industry. And then Rowan did their marketing campaign, of which I was in one of the videos just talking about how great Ultralift is. So that video floats around on the internet as well. But is that a time for you to go, okay, cool, now I want to test these skills and see where they do their best work?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to start something. I wanted to do my own business, but I knew that I wasn't ready. I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. I knew I had to have.
What was it about that? Is that the fear of the financial? No.
I can sell the dream, but I can't build it.
Cool.
So
you're remarkably self-aware, man. Like, the way that you're self-aware is very obvious as to why you've had that level of success. But yeah.
So thank you. So I really wanted to try and start something, and I thought maybe some consulting or something. But again, I probably still wasn't mature enough. I wasn't connected enough. So, okay, go out and let's do something and see where it takes me. So I was applying for roles. I actually got close with a solution engineer role at box.com. So Swiss was a Box customer, and I think we were like one of their first Australian direct enterprise customers or something. Not like their first customer in Australia, but we knew the Box local team. So I was going for a role there and got down to myself and another lady who was a legit solution engineer.
Yeah.
And so she got the role. And I went and approached the MD and said, I'd love to just catch up, learn what can I do better, blah, blah, blah. Went to the office and he said, let's go and grab a beer. I said, cool. So, and he said, I've got someone I want to introduce you to, which was the CEO of this smaller Salesforce partner that was looking at opening up a Melbourne office, and they wanted someone who was a bit salesy, a bit technical, to start up the Melbourne practice and try and grow it. And I thought, this is perfect.
So this is the first step into Salesforce exposure?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I met Martin, the old CEO at Cloud, and I talked my way into that and started that. And I think I was at Cloud for 2.5 years, three years maybe, and grew the Melbourne practice up and got some good customers, brought on the team, and that's where I sort of started in Salesforce, and also where I met a bunch of the guys that I started Skie with. So at the end of Cloud, I just had a fundamental disagreement with Martin over culture, the way that he was running his business, but I love Salesforce, and I was getting to the point where I believed in the technology, I believed in what could be done, but for the last couple of months, I was going in and selling this stuff, but knowing that we as a business were not going to be able to deliver it. And that's, I did it a few times, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I can't put my name to this. So resigned and heard that couple of the other guys were in the same boat. So spoke to them. Let's give it a crack. See if we can do it ourselves.
And that.
That's how Skie started.
So how many people in the beginning?
3.
Yep.
So myself, David, and Matt. So myself as the sort of sales and strategy, David as the core CRM consultant, and Matt as the marketing side consultant. So, you know, I was talking about before, I can sell a dream, but I can't build it. There we go. There's the 3 of us.
Yeah.
Now we've got a team. And also in the Salesforce world, it's important for being cross cloud, multi cloud is important. There's not that many companies that can do CRM plus the marketing side.
Okay.
A lot are focused on one and then sort of cross pollinate to the other because of market opportunity. So we started very much with the DNA of being all in across the whole platform, core and marketing. Admittedly, the core side has grown a lot faster for us, but right from the beginning we were cross cloud. So anyway, that's
how it kicks off.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind because I always say I'm a great number 2, but I could never be a number 1. And the reason I can't be a number 1, there's obviously, neurodivergent brain challenges I've got that sort of, that get in the way of executive function and things like that. I have always flirted with the idea of it would be great to be your own boss and work your own time and all those sorts of things. But I never look at, the actual stuff that needs to go on. How is starting a business when you've never done it before and, it could go either way? Do you wrestle with that, or are you the sort of guy that's like, let's just do it? Like, what's the worst that could go wrong?
It's a good question. I think on reflection, I was brilliantly naive, but we were also all of us in a really fortunate position in that the 3 of us had partners, and we were at a unique point of our lives where we went, okay, we'll give this 6 months, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll go and get jobs. So, my wife, then at the time partner, Jess.
Hi, Jess.
We talked about it. I'm like, I've got to give this a crack, and she was supportive. Matt was married. Married. Similar kind of situation, but he had a little apartment underneath his house, renting it out. So their living expenses were really low. So he was like, "Yep, cool. I'll give this a crack for a while." And at that stage, David had moved back in with his parents, not intentionally, just fortunately. Had moved back in with his parents to clear some other debt and take care of a few things. So we kind of all went, what do we got to lose? Let's give it a shot. I hadn't run my own shop, but I'd run my own region. Yeah. So I kind of had a loose idea of what was required. There's a lot more with your own business, with just a whole bunch of extra stuff that comes along. You don't even
all
think
the
about
behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. But so it was incredible timing, and we were just really fortunate. That was the timing for the 3 of us was like, okay, let's do this. Yeah,
because Jess, your wife, then partner, was also pretty big in the corporate world. So she worked. Who was she working for?
Kevin Murphy.
Yeah, because she was international travel and she'd be overseas for,
She's still there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is that something that needs to be considered, or is that just, hey, you're high flying, I'm high flying, let's just, again, commit to a time and see how this plays out?
Yeah, I'm not sure it was really a conscious decision. It was just sort of, and I think that's also why, Jess and I have worked really well, because we are our own independent people. And I love the success that she's had, and she's fantastic. Does got such a different approach to me on so many different things. But I think that's it was never really a question because she's going to do her own thing. I'm going to do my own thing. And we just make sure that we can figure out how it's going to work together.
Yeah. So important, isn't it? Like in having that sort of dynamic in a situation like that. So, all right, now we've crossed the line. We're like, cool, caution to the wind. Let's have a crack at this thing. Is it nerve-wracking? Is it a smooth start? Is it like, hey, this is easier than we thought?
It's just exciting.
Yeah.
It was exciting. I was lucky. Again, I already had some good relationships with Salesforce. I had one customer that I had ready, waiting in the wings.
Mm-hmm.
So
poaching, they call that? Do they call that poaching?
Potentially. But it was actually my old boss from Swiss.
Oh.
Not Felicity, but the original IT manager that hired me back in the day.
Yeah.
Andy Milligan, and he was at another place, and I was speaking to him. He was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I remember that very first invoice, that very first sale going out. We're like, "Wow, it's
happening.
This is happening."
No office at this time. Work from home.
No, work from home.
Yeah.
Work from home. In fact, that I ended up getting a co-working space. I don't know, 2 or 3 months in, just a seat at the Commons in Collingwood. Mm-hmm. Just because I was always going into the city and it made no sense keeping coming home and all of that. And I work better in an office. I need to. I thrive on people, and I need to have a space. I need to. I can do some work from home, but I need that trip to like reset.
Yeah, I'm the same. It puts you into work mode.
Yeah.
It takes you out of work mode.
Yeah.
100%.
But that first year was super exciting. It was, like David, came down and would spend weeks at our house. I remember, talking about Jess and the trips. She went on like a 3-week trip or something like this to Spain and one of the international shows that she does and stuff. And David was there for a couple of days before she left, and David was still there, like, when she got home 3 weeks later, and this was, I don't know, 6-7 months into the business. And she's like, do we have a housemate now?
We're starting a business.
And, but that was the thing, like that we had, 2 computers side by side. David and I were smashing it out. Matt was on the Gold Coast doing his thing, smashing it out. It was exciting. I think excitement overshadowed the how daunting it could have been. But also, again, I feel like all of the steps leading up to it just meant that I felt really comfortable that we could do it. The biggest gap was just the behind the scenes unknowns. I knew I could sell. I knew we could deliver. David and Matt are really bloody good at what they do. So I knew the work wasn't the problem, or getting the work even wasn't the problem. It was, okay, how are we going to
make a business?
Yeah. And grow and craft this business. And
because that's like, for me, even working in this business, like the amount of anxiety I get when I don't understand like an expense. I see some of the expenses that you have sometimes in a business for, you've got payroll, you've got logistics, you've got all these things. And you're like, I see sometimes the size of an invoice that as a business we have to pay. And I'm like, if that was my business, I wouldn't know what to do. Like, I'm like, that's such a huge sum of money. And what happens with, like, when does the other money come in? And that's why I think for me, I know how to work within the confines of a framework, but if I was responsible for building the framework, I think I would not do very well. Does it get to a point, and you mentioned the excitement sort of overshadows the dread, but does it get to a point where you go, okay, this is actually getting big and I've got to do some real things?
Yeah, of course. There's a bunch of different milestones that sort of come up. When we first did over $1 million in revenue for the first time, that's like,
Oh,
just mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
Our first hire, that was incredible. Lee, and she's still with us.
Yeah.
That was intense because it was like, okay, this isn't just the three of us now. Like, we've got someone that relies on us and our decision making
To feed their families,
exactly,
take care of them. Yeah.
and that's a responsibility that I still take seriously. So that's a big milestone. You know, like, first time our payroll for the month got over $100,000. You're like,
that's what I mean. For me, that's where I'd start going, okay, so that means no matter what, you know, next month there needs to be at least $100,000.
Yeah. So all of those things add up. But honestly, it sort of just happens. And once, you know, some of those analogies that you keep hearing, like once the train's left the station, blah, 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 it's true. The business now has its own entity. Yeah, we're still running this thing, and it's still our business, but man, it's its own beast.
Yeah. And how big is it now? How many people? And you're in multiple countries now as well. What's the setup?
So, we're just under 50 people, and we're in Australia. We've got an entity in Singapore, so we're to look after the APAC region. Dev center in Thailand, and then we've got nearshore resources in the Philippines.
50 people.
Yeah.
That is crazy. You have highlighted a couple of times in the talk today the importance of culture and building a business. How do you maintain a level of culture, particularly when you're growing so rapidly and when you're so sparse, so spread out? You know, how do you enforce and maintain the culture that you know the business needs to continue?
You got to hire great people. You spend a lot of time and a lot of energy in making sure that you hire people that have similar core values to what your business has and the way that you operate, and focus on those behaviors and making sure that you instill that kind of organic culture.
Do you believe in the, hire the attitude and teach the skill, or is that a balancing act too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to have. It gets more difficult as you grow larger and as you need more specific niche skills and whatnot. But fundamentally, you and especially with consulting, you have to have good soft skills, good people skills. Be able to instantly have rapport with your customers, and you can't really teach that. You have to have it, or have those sort of fundamentals that you can then peel away a bit of anxiety, but you've got that sort of fundamentals there. And then also know, there's tons of resources, and if you've got good core technical skills, we can build on that. But we can't build on someone who's brilliant technician, but just doesn't have the people skills. In our business, there's really almost no one that is sort of just locked away in a back room. Basically everyone is customer facing, so you've got to have those skills. So building the culture is so important around hiring people. I mean, we are a people business. That's what we do. We sell people's time. So having the right people is just the most important thing.
But then how do you keep up? And I'll paint it in a picture where I used COVID as the perfect example, right? So the time that we had during lockdowns, and in particular here, it was an interesting time for me because I had just started. I was 2 weeks into this business, and having to try and build that rapport. You need that connectedness. You sort of, I'm an empath. I like to be in the room with someone because it helps me read body language and understand what they're like. And so my biggest fear was there is no way that I'm going to be able to bring culture the way I know how, given this environment, because I can't be around these people. I can't, it's going to be different. When you can't be with your people all the time because they're scattered around the world. Is that do you regularly get together with your leaders and sort of champion that framework? Are there things that you're revisiting as strategy and leveraging the culture as being the important thing? How do you keep that up?
Yeah, good question. There's a few things to unpack there. First, during COVID, it was really difficult. It was especially difficult for me. I'm similar. I'd like to be in the room. I like the physical presence. But ultimately, I think that what we ended up doing was just trying to be as real as possible. Just spend some time, literally just call, use Google Meet or whatever we were using then. Just quickly drop a line on people. Do like the afternoon, afternoon drinks. We used to send out. We'd send out like Uber Eats vouchers. To people and sort of do virtual, catch ups. Just try anything that we can to try and bring people together to create a sense of community, even albeit digitally. And look, it worked well. It was, it was a challenging time, but we kind of, we were also really fortunate in our industry because we were still busy. So we weren't trying to battle a culture problem and also a business lack of work problem. We were flat out. So it made it a lot easier for us because you're still busy. So you've got lots of things keeping you occupied. And then we just had to top it up with a bit of culture, with a bit of engagement. So that was that side. The next part about sort of maintaining it, revisiting it, is a really interesting thing. I feel like the whole industry was quite challenging last year. In the Salesforce space, after all the tech layoffs and everything kind of plateaued, and we really right-sized. We had, we were just on this growth trajectory, so it was a good opportunity for us to sort of stop, right-size the business, change a few things, and I think during that time there was a few other challenges as well, and for a period of time I got distracted from culture, from some of those things. It didn't completely erode, but it's interesting when you kind of, look over your shoulder and go, well, hang on a second, and then go and refocus on it again. We were lucky. We had a good organic culture. So even with me not focusing on it for a period of time, it didn't completely erode. It didn't go away. But then, you have to turn your attention back to it and, cultivate it and make sure that it continues and you nurture it and that you give it direction. So that's probably been in the last 6 months, refocusing on that, making sure that we're spending time with people, focusing on people's, training and development, all those kinds of things. It's really important.
Yeah. What does your day look like now? So once the business is established and it's grown, you're a massive entity now, like you were saying before. What do day-to-day operations look like for a CEO of a business like that? Are you more internally focused? Are you more externally focused? Is it strategic? What's the approach?
It's a good question. It's been, I feel like the last 6 months to a year has been a bit of a turning point where I'm definitely doing a lot less of working in the business. Now, spending a bit more time working on the business. Focus at the moment, like obviously, like I was just saying before, focus on the people, focus on making sure that we've got, we're communicating well, we've got, we're looking after our people. But now starting to also think about, our different revenue streams, diversification, our partnerships, being able to go to market with new service offerings. So starting to, look a little bit more externally on, okay, well, what are the other things that we can bring into our business and, add value to our existing customers, and that that are complementary to our core service. So, we're a Salesforce partner. That's never going to change. But what are the other things that we can deliver as a Salesforce partner that add value to our customers? So, strengthening up our relationships with our, with the Salesforce ISV partners like FormStack, all of these all the
other stuff that you have to sort of integrate. Yeah.
And starting to look at just look at the way that we can offer value adjacent to our core services. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on at the moment, as well as just helping the other leaders in the business be a sounding board and sort of try and just make sure that they have what they need to do well. We've talked about David and Matt, but we've got two other people in our leadership team, Dan and Ivan. Dan's our sales director, Ivan's our solutions director, and they're just, rock stars, right? Making sure that they have what they need to do their job. Spending a lot more time with our, partnership with Salesforce, cultivating the executive alignment. We've been really good at building grassroots, relationships with AEs and all that sort of stuff. Now it's, trying to visualize it. It's like we've been really good at grassroots up. Now we also need to kind of come executive layer down and meet in the middle. So that's kind of a focus for me at the moment.
I always, because I never understand where growth stops. And you look at businesses and you sort of think, well, when does the boss of the business go, okay, this is enough. Like, we'll just do this, like, for the next 5 or 6 years. Like, we've got the right people, we've got the right revenue, it's all good. Is there a natural, and I guess this is the entrepreneurial spirit, right? It's like, what can this be and how big can it get? Is that something that you find still drives you? Is it a case of, I really want to see how big this thing can get and how much we do? Like, or is it okay, if it gets massive, it gets massive, but I'm happy with what we're doing. Like, how does that work?
I know we've still got some legs.
Still got, yeah. Yeah, right. That sounds aggressive.
There's different barriers that you sort of start to come up to, like revenue barriers, and they inherently mean that there's structural, organizational change that needs to happen. Once like I said, we're at about 50 people now. We can probably grow, headcount wise, a little bit more before we need to really think structurally about, different middle management. Yeah. But before we really need to think about those kind of problems, because otherwise, then your quality drops. You don't have the same level of oversight. There's lots of little things. So, and when you do that, then the profile of your the way that you do your pricing, the way that you do all of these other things have to sort of change, because you're adding additional overhead. You're adding
HR resources, all of the things that come with the administrative part.
Yeah. So none of that is insurmountable. Businesses do it all the time. But, for us, it's kind of like, okay, well, when's that tipping point? And I'm, hoping that, trying to sort of shore up all of these other areas like I talked about with our partnerships to potentially offset some of that. So we've got other revenue streams that come into the business so that we can accelerate our core and make some changes in our core with a little bit of protection, a little padding. So there's different ways to think about it and approach it, but
there's a part of you that's like, I want to see how big this thing can get.
Of course.
Yeah. Cool. That's good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I as I said before, you're probably one of the most self-aware guys that I've come across. What about when you think back to the time when you were, rock starring and there was that life? What is that like when you look back? Do you ever think, like, does your mind flirt with if it could have been great in the rockstar world? Or are you like, no, I'm just where I need to be now. This is everything that I've ever wanted. Because I get hung up on not being a bloody famous muso more often than I should.
No, I don't think so. Again, because I'm the drummer.
Mm.
So again, I didn't have control over what could have been. To a large degree, I was along for the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I think your personal wants and needs change over time. And am I happy with where I'm at now? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Could it have been different? Was there some sliding door moments? Maybe. But then again, I also think about the other part of it is, like with private radio.
Yeah.
Right. If we had have really taken off, maybe Gareth wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right.
True. Yeah. And that's the other, the other thing to always think about is you don't know how, particularly in a rock star life, sometimes people just don't survive it.
Yeah.
You can't, and it might not necessarily be because of abuse issues or something like that. Is plane falls out of the sky or something.
Yeah,
like
whatever.
That. Like who knows? I guess for me, it's more about I always like to understand when people realize they're on the right path, because that's something for me that I've always struggled with, and it's a little bit imposter syndrome. It's a little bit like I thought when I got here these things would happen like that validate who I am. Is it just a consistent case of, and it's metaphorical, right? Like you're the drummer, so you're the guy that sets the pace for everyone else. It sort of feels like that's where you've ended up, as a CEO, you sort of setting the rhythm for the rest of the team.
Yeah, I guess.
Is it feeling like you're right where you need to be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what I do.
Yeah.
And as we're getting a bit bigger, as we need to wrestle competing priorities and sort of think about all of these different things that are potentially coming up, I'm seeing more and more that generalist nature is a real advantage. I've still got so much to learn. Like, I look at other businesses and I look at some other industries and the way that different things run, and it really fascinates me. So, yeah, I don't have it all figured out at all, right?
Would you do it again? Like knowing what you know now, and I guess with the skill set, if 5 years from now, whatever happens, if there's an opportunity for you to start a new business, would you ever do that again? Or
for sure,
you would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
That's good. I would be terrified. And I think the stress that I went through in actually starting the business would cement that. So you would literally get up and start from scratch again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And with hindsight's 2020, right? So being able to think about, some of the things along the way that we've done well and done not so well, and have the opportunity to sort of, try it all again, make some different decisions along the way. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
In technology, in a different industry, I don't know. Wherever the opportunity comes. Like I said, we've still got
plenty to do.
We've still got more to do with Skie, but yeah. Who knows what's around the corner, but I would absolutely do it again.
Do it again. That's crazy. Well, you're a better man than me when it comes to that stuff. So for people that want to get in touch, for people that want some more info, we're going to put links and everything in the comments, but where do we go? How do we get in touch with you? What's the story?
So skie.com.au, skie.com.au. Reach out to us there and yeah, we're happy to have a chat and figure out how we can help you.
Get it all happening.
Yeah.
We can't reach out. We're a a ConnectWise house. Sorry. Otherwise, we would most certainly reach out. But yeah, Adam, it's been awesome. So this is the first time I've done this with someone that I know personally, so it's definitely got that vibe about it. Thanks for coming out. You're moving back to Melbourne in the next little while.
Yes.
So I think we do this again in a little while and see how things are going at Skie.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy.